My entire immediate family. One of my siblings I have always like to think that I voted for once and because of no, and that's because I haven't been looking for like a no, I know there hasn't. I almost really considered, but I was convinced that it was worth it. Well, I mean, to me, Kenton, my husband felt since he met me, he has been lobbying to get me. Registered. Actually, now he knew the deal. We have a very like everyone like. But 2016 almost broke me. Yeah. Because it divided my house about who we. I could let you guess which way that went. But so that almost broke me. If that didn't break me, and then everyone's like, there's one vote. It's not my vote. But I can't help it all. Like,
I mean, your house here will.
I can't even touch a petition.
She's hoping interesting. Hey, that's not that bad.
Just me for the
They've been trying to like get me. I'm like, I ain't got time.
Like it's
The committee?
Yeah.
It's a big, I mean, it's great.
It's time. I was like, I already have.
Jan, do you have an extra agenda?
Yeah, it's a big time. And usually actually I'll be able to because I'm because
Yeah, they are.
agent,
Yeah. Yeah.
an executive wow, you might not be. Cat was off.
I guess it's.
I mean, I would probably definitely. It is, but it's not.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'll
play that card anytime.
And then when he was,
It's a good card.
sometimes
I'm like,
he had to step down because there's Jacob.
Well, I know Jacob.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have very strict rules about.
Okay, we're gonna call the meeting to order, the Monday, March 11, 2024 Board of Trustees meeting. Just go around the room. My name is Mark Kissinger, I'm Board President.
Sherry Whiting, I'm the Board Treasurer.
Sarah Patterson, trustee.
Charmaine Widgesinger, trustee and co-vice president.
Caroline Brancatella, secretary.
Laura DeBetta, Trustee.
Lisa Scoons, trustee and UHLS board liaison.
Michelle Walsh, co-vice president.
Jeff Kirkpatrick, director.
Okay, the first order of business is public participation.
Hazel. Hi, I'm Hazel Linda. I live in Delmar and I'm a member of Bethlehem.
Excuse me, can I ask you to speak, like maybe we can lower the mic and speak directly into the mic? I don't know if it's on. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
I think the board should be focusing on building goodwill of the community towards the library. You were asking for 30+ million to renovate the library while at the same time considering charging for use of the meeting room. It seems to me you have gotten so carried away by focusing on ways to punish the NP that you're going to extremes. This focus has been going on since early December. It's about time it is put to bed and attention is devoted to more productive things.
Anyone else?
I have always understood that a library is a space for education and learning with huge options for gaining such knowledges. In my opinion, this library board has failed to uphold these commitments to unbiased education in numerous ways. They have decided which kind of education is allowable. Censorship belongs only in fascist countries. You did allow our program to go forward, but you failed on the 4th of December to remind all patrons of their need to adhere to your own patron policies, thereby allowing for the chaos that ensued on the 5th. No harassment or intimidation is allowed, but you allowed it to be on full display. Simple solution: enforce your own already adequate guidelines of behavior. You then followed your first failure by sanctioning BNP based on complete lies. We did not sell any books and you know it. We did not harass anyone, but we were frequently harassed and intimidated by a group of angry people who were aggressively opposed to our speaker. They wanted to override our rights to free speech. Our community has benefited from educational services for 20 years that BNP has offered on every current event that has occurred. We never had to face the intimidation and harassment or complete disregard of common civility that you allowed to occur in this public library. This is a complete injustice to a group who has been committed to expanding information and education on many topics. It is your job also to disseminate and broaden the arena of education in this library. As you failed miserably to fulfill your legal responsibility as a public library to uphold our First Amendment rights, you took sides, and your bias resulted in your caving to the demands of the opposition, and you sanctioned BNP based on a complete set of lies and to satisfy the call for punishment from that group. The director failed to do an investigation that he was asked to fulfill to expose the real harassment and intimidation that was experienced by or witnessed on the 5th of December and here at the board meetings. Just another failure to fulfill your required responsibilities. You have failed to return a response to our appeal within the guidelines on your website. Your job as representatives of this library is to represent to the community that you uphold First Amendment rights and believe in support education. The global community continues to respond with millions of people protesting the ongoing slaughter of Palestinians. The genocide continues while many innocent people are crushed by this inhumane policy. It must stop. Our respective attorneys have had congenial conversations that have resulted in nothing but silence from this board. I call on you, the board, to rescind its sanctions against BNP and resume the right of access to all.
Peter Looker.
I have been to many of the talks that Best Neighbors has sponsored over the years. I've been to some of their other gatherings, and I found them to be extremely peaceful and extremely helpful and bring a lot of information to the world. And I just feel like by banning them, it's like banning books. It's like burning books. This isn't Florida. This is New York. People should be allowed to speak respectfully, and I just wish you'd let them go back to bringing in interesting speakers. I found them always to be very, very polite, very.
Okay, is there anyone else that'd like to speak?
Can I just?
Yep.
Haven't planned on doing this. I'm Robert McDonald. Recently found on the library website a message from the director addressing some of the concerns in local media about the building proposal. It is an excellent message, including stating the library's plan to expand the book collection and also showing that existing demand for meeting space can sometimes exceed current room limits, and how that need will be met by the revised building, not by a standalone large meeting room, which I think is important to point out, but rather by configuring smaller meeting rooms into a larger space. It's an excellent message. Rather than just having the message on the website, perhaps paper copies should be made available at the circulation desk or elsewhere in the library to make this message as widely read as possible. Community support is going to be needed as the building project moves forward, and we hope that it will succeed. The board must serve all groups in the Bethlehem community, including one that I believe was overly harshly penalized in the wake of a recent event. Mistakes were made all around at the event and afterwards, by those presenting the event, by the speaker, by those hosting the event, and I'm sorry to say by library and the trustees in the aftermath. I think it is time to move on, and I again have said this in the past, urge you to do so. Let's get this settled so that we can move forward with future plans. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you all. We're gonna move into the review of previous meeting minutes found on page 2 through 9 of the board packet. Any questions or on the minutes, corrections? Can't take a motion on the minutes.
So moved.
Made and second.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by raising your hand, saying aye. Seeing no opposition, that motion is carried. Okay, next item is the financial report, pages 10 through 19.
I think the report this month is pretty consistent with past months for the past year. Interest income is again 99,000, reflecting the change in the interest rate environment. And expenses are tracking at about 3% under budget compared to about 6% last year at this time. So we are spending a little bit more. We're fully staffed, so our salaries are more on track with where they should be at this point in time than they have been in the past. It's one of the things that's a little bit different. We'll talk about the budget right now, but does anybody have any questions about the report? Do you want to go through it a little bit? Really, nothing outstanding this month that occurred.
Any questions, discussion? Okay, I'll take a motion on the financial report.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor signify by raising their hand or saying aye. Seeing opposition, that motion carries as well. We'll talk about the budget later in the agenda. Okay, are you all set? Do you have any?
I'm all set.
Okay, personnel report, page 20.
I have to say, I'm sorry to say that I have to request an action to fill a part-time library clerk. We had 2 months of no actions needed, so I'm very happy about that. But just a backfill of an existing position, same schedule.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raising their hand. Sorry. Seeing opposition, that motion carries as well. Yeah. Director's report.
Okay, so we'll talk about the voting, everything that had to happen with voting later on. Public services. It was fun to have that February break off again, just for the business in the library, and brought a lot of children back into the library. It's nice to focus on those important, like, regular library stuff that we do. I just wanted to call out specifically, I don't normally call it a specific stat, but last year we had 318 study sessions, which was 571 people. This year during February, 448 with 867. Now we did have an extra day, but that's not enough to change those numbers that much. That's just a sign that those in-person uses of the library continue to increase at a greater rate than even our circulation, which is still going up. So we added some new toys or some refreshed toys, excuse me, in the children's room. So new kitchen, very popular, sorting baskets for plastic fruit, apparently a win. Just a great number of programs. I can't possibly go through everything. Come on, mouse, work for me. Just a lot of really good programs, high attendance this month. Bethlehem Historical Association at 93. I want to again call out the early literacy program. So we are seeing consistent numbers in tiny tots, 37 to 66, 5 sessions, 7 sessions of movement and music, 52 to 81. So these are programs that we used to do in the story room. They're not gonna fit back in the story room. They've been doing them since the pandemic in this room, and this is where they have to be given the just the attendance. You know, we still will try to move some of the programs back in the story time room to take some of the pressure off these rooms, but this is the room we need to have to in order for our children's programs. And I could be doing them all the time. So this is.
What's the capacity of the story room?
Story room is jumping around little bodies. 25 would be really getting up there. You could probably cram, the fire code capacity is like 39, but to be able to move around at all, not that high. So that's about what we're talking about. So we can do some of the Saturday story times, some of the story times we can put in there. So anyway, that's just a change from pre-pandemic, and it's just something to be noted because it does make this room less available for other programs and particularly other groups in the interest community.
And I would say then that this data is just further proof that we need more space in our library, this and the study rooms.
Right. Yeah, and they're just even today where we had power outage. We got power returned here, but it was out in much of Slingerlands and headed out New Scotland Ave. So a lot of people came in. Study rooms filled up essentially instantly as soon as we opened, and I could have used 3 times as many. And that's not unusual. It's just it was unusual for the time of the day. They do tend to fill up earlier because we get a lot of the special education itinerant teachers will come in, working with children and other therapists. So anyway, that's it. They're just busy. They're busy, and it's a return to that sort of pre-pandemic physical busyness. So,
Jeff, do you think that this is a trend that's going to continue upward, or
I do.
are you thinking it's going to like level out a little bit?
I don't think the children's programming, the early literacy programs, so the story times and other early literacy programs, that's not going to be less. I think the staff are doing an excellent job. I'm receiving unasked for compliments. There, one young lady, where's that man? So Alex, who does a great job with some of our story times. I mean, he does a great job with all the story times that he does, but he does some of our story times. And so we've got just a selection of librarians doing all of that work, and the kids have the people they want to come see, and I don't see that being less. Like I said, we could dedicate this space all the time. I mean, I could have turtles and owls and story times, like Celine in Las Vegas. We could have her here all the time on residency, but we have to leave the rooms open for other stuff too. But it's a balance in our use. And I'd love not to have to balance quite so much. I do want to hit on some of the outreach that we're doing. The librarians are doing a lot of really good outreach. Ellesmere Elementary, Glenmont Elementary, doing some of the after school programs. And as I mentioned last month, we had Turn to the Pit at the middle school.
I just want to say I'm on the back end of that Ellesmere one. Like I did the sign up information, and it was the first class that filled up instantaneous.
Fantastic. Thank you. We had some questions last month about curbside. So about 200 a month, 260 a month transactions. Losing my voice. So about 200 transactions a month, 260 transactions a month going forward. So it's just to keep in mind when we're talking about curbside, about the number of curbside volumes that's data's in there. We've got good Chromebook use. I'm going to save some of this for later. You can read my report. And I will bring this up later, but I had a question here about the community bulletin board. I have examples of some of the things that we're not sure about anymore, like the American Legion breakfast buffet. Make charges, but is that Is that an acceptable use?
Yeah, okay, you can take a little,
Thank you.
yeah, let's take a
It's gotta
little,
be super.
little bit of break here. We're gonna take a couple minute break.
Worst.
Okay. Thank you. Do you want to watch?
No,
Jeff, can I ask you a question about this? It's sort of really about the building project, but when you talk about purchasing toys and things for the children's space, I know that a community member wrote to us about the building project and talked about, I think used a statement around like, this sounds like a childcare center, perhaps. Is your vision for the addition and the new space, the renovation? I would imagine that's gonna be supervised space, so I just wanted to ask you, like, so I know there'll be play space and there'll be program space and we have to figure out the craft room and all the rest, but in terms of that general space for the use as a children's space.
Right.
I'm imagining it's not going to be a childcare space per se, it'll be supervised children, so.
Yeah, kids are not allowed in unaccompanied, right? So they have to be with a guardian or caregiver. So it's absolutely not our intention to be providing daycare ever with staff people. So it's that play is an important early literacy skill. It introduces people to the library, to both parents and children, gets them to come into the library, and then provides opportunities for kids to do a lot of those pre-reading skills that are very important. And there's been a lot of research done on the importance of play for pre-literacy. And in some ways you can just see the demand on those busy winter weekends. I think there's not a lot of great options for kids for indoor activities in the winter. And so our space de facto becomes that, and then it moves because there's not enough room in the children's area. It moves into the stack area and then takes away the opportunities where you need that. It's hard for me to say contemplative with children, but the reading opportunities for caregivers and children to have those reading opportunities, we need to have be able to separate those things. I think we've done a very good job, staff have done a very good job of providing for both of those opportunities at different times. But it is something that's in tension, and I think it causes some tensions among members of the public who see the library's children's room primarily providing a place for social interaction, group play, or those that would see it mostly as a place to come and gather books, do some quieter activities and reading. This is not new or unique to our library. This is a thing that's existed for a long time. So it's
Sure. And then even in the new space, children's will have to be supervised by their caregiver or parent, and there'll be staff there, correct? So.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you. I just wanted to mention that it was a concern that was raised and I wanted you to respond. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, Mark, for my break. I appreciate that. I hope this isn't too annoying to listen to.
not at all. Yeah.
So some things we had just sort of pulled a couple weeks worth of stuff from the bulletin board. Some things are sort of more overtly commercial, and then some things are directly are non-commercial. It's the Ohio Preserve is not commercial, but it's an event where there's a sale, and I just wanted to have a little bit of discussion about that.
Yeah.
Like the American Legion doing a pot roast or a corned beef and Reuben and Rachel sandwich. I don't know. It's a fundraiser. Does that something from the Mendelssohn Choir? There's a ticket cost. Is that something, or Hudson Valley advertising some of their informational sessions? Are these things that are acceptable for the bulletin board or not? So in my sort of strict constructionist interpretation of the policy, I would say no, because it's a solicitation. But I know this is an issue that's come up a lot, and so right now I'm defaulting to no. There's the other community notices, if there's an event that there's not a cost for, or just general information about nonprofits that goes up on the bulletin board. But there are some things that bridge this gap, and I'm just not quite sure what to do. The staff is asking for me for clarification. it's not an emergency. We don't have to decide tonight, but I wanted to bring it up. And I will be asking for some more clarification again.
Did you want to kick that to the policy committee? Or are you asking for?
I don't need a decision tonight. We'll just move forward with sort of my more strict
Yeah.
interpretation of that. But I did wanna ask that question. I think it's important. It's an important discussion for us to have.
Yeah, absolutely. So the lines that you, if I understand it correctly, the lines that you're making is that. Like if the American Legion wants to advertise a breakfast, there's a cost to.
Right.
That's a no.
Right.
If the American Legion wants to advertise that they're available to join,
Right.
that's okay.
Right. Or like street fair, you know, in the Four Corners, a big event. That's,
Hudson Valley Open House.
yeah, right.
That's-
Fine.
Okay. So it's just it's the numerate, the cost charging.
It's the charge. Right.
and Raising of money.
But is there not a difference between, and I understand why we don't put the artist's cost on the bulletin board.
Correct. That's,
But that's an item that almost seems like it's for sale in the library. This is more information about community events.
Right.
They're not putting up a display here. The event isn't gonna be here. It's not gonna be associated with the library in any way.
Right, that's the, I mean, I can see both sides. The distinction is basically, if it's just informational, like how far does information go?
Right. Well, I know you brought up the Brooks Barbecue flyer.
Right.
Now, see, as a patron and resident of this town, I would like to see the flyer.
Right.
Like, oh, it would remind me, I have to go make my order.
right.
I
Yeah,
don't
it's in
know,
no
I
way.
kinda like the idea of, I would call it community information more than sales.
Do you have a copy of the policy?
We can have the policy, right, so it's.
I just was wondering exactly kind of what it was, just so
Sure. Give me a.
I knew you had to go looking, that's why I wanted to ask you if you wanted to put it up there, just so that we were clear. I mean, it sounds like we're having a little bit of a discussion anyway, but it might be just, if we're gonna give
Or
you
maybe
some
that the
feedback,
policy-
it'd be helpful to.
Yeah, might
know
need
what-
changing. I don't know.
I mean, I hate reinventing the wheel, right? I'm sure we're not the first library to have this conversation. And since we're in a system, I'm just wondering if we could ask Upper Hudson Library System and just see if there's any kind of consistency there.
So I've done some poking around, and there's not a ton,
Okay.
we're a little bit more in the, sort of our solicitation and distribution policy, is in the,
Community involvement.
yeah, it's both of them.
Yes, both.
It may have been displays one, because we just did it like within a year, I think.
It's the interaction of this policy with the solicitation and distribution policy, and that's where I just,
Right.
I mean, I'm happy, we'll kick this to policy committee, we'll have a discussion there,
Where did the question come from?
So given the display policy that we just redid, we're not posting the sales of like the art display. So if someone wants to sell that, in the past, we had put that on the bulletin board, and that was not expressed clearly in the policy. So with the re-understanding of that, we took that off. We said, oh, we need to talk about what we're accepting in for the bulletin board. Out of that question came this question, because the staff is like, where's that line? What is it? Is it strictly a commercial, non-commercial line? But, sales in the library have been an issue. So I think it's important that we.
Well, I guess my question more specifically is, has a patron come to you and felt that the library was being used for improper solicitation?
No,
That is not dispositive. I'm just curious.
it's more in the other direction. It's that people really would like the bulletin board to be used that way. And we're saying under our policies and in our looking at the law with those inurement clauses, like it's not really well protected use in a government sponsored public library. So that's where this comes from.
What about the Bethlehem TV resource as something that we could tap into?
The BCN.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, how we're handling things there, or
Listing community activities that
Oh, it's there,
way and
yeah.
have it running when it's not programmed out there in the hallway.
correct. So that they're on there, and so the Brooks
Yeah.
Barbecue and are on that scroller and they're up there. So it's all part of the same.
So they're there. People are probably not trained to look there, though.
I guess, and I'm just, for the purposes of discussion, I guess, how far do you take that? For example, right now, I believe in the other room, there's a program going on for 2 Life, whose sole purpose is to raise awareness about breast cancer issues and to raise funds in support of research for it. So if I'm just for the purpose of discussion, just taking it to its logical end, if we allow them to have a meeting where they are there voluntarily and they are speaking about, they're having a planning meeting and they are speaking about a fundraising event, does that follow the same logic? I think it can be distinguished, but I'm just curious how far do we take it?
I always thought the policy was focused on sales on library property. That's the no-no.
Yes, yeah, I
The
agree.
poster isn't a sale on library property.
Right.
Well, it said, I think the amendment, which I think we just did like last month, said something about no price list.
Right.
Right.
For the artwork,
So, again, I'm not
That's
exactly sure.
what-
because the artwork is displayed in the
Here,
library. Again,
correct.
that's an entirely different thing than
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
Yeah, people aren't selling like Brooks barbecue tickets at the library.
No.
Right.
Right, so.
Correct. Okay, so if that exists, are we comfortable saying that that's a acceptable use of the bulletin board if it's for a nonprofit?
Oh, does that mean a babysitter couldn't put up a?
Correct.
Tutor.
You know, maybe introduce a good points, maybe is the next policy committee meeting, just give a quick, and by the next meeting, hopefully we can come up with say we looked at it and. Okay,
Great. Thank you.
A good point of discussion.
Yes. I have one other question on the report.
Okay.
Sitting met with Hill,
Yes.
how'd that go?
Oh, great.
Okay.
We're not, there's nothing specific to report as far as my meeting with Hill.
Okay.
But they were, I think they're interested in talking with our friends of the library just about how they're organized and as an organization. Luckily, the president of the Friends is absolutely wants to meet with them and made that connection. So
Great.
he's great. So.
Any other questions for Jeff on the director's report? Okay, UHLS.
It's that time of year when we're looking at annual program award guidelines, so we'll be sending those out soon. The annual celebration is again gonna be that second Wednesday in June, and they're looking for a location in Albany County this year. So you won't have to drive as far, but hopefully we'll have a location pretty soon. But other than that, that's all that's going on.
Okay, any questions for Lisa? Okay, moving into new business. The first order of business is the construction manager RFP. We don't talk about it generally.
Absolutely. So there's nothing in your packet about this. This is just a conceptual question. The architect has recommended that the library hire a construction manager. We are at the point in design development where having our construction manager, which is another contractor that the library has, represent its library's interest in this sort of construction process and pre-construction process. So Suzanne's opinion is she feels strongly that it's time for us to have a construction manager, and that would be helpful in having a little bit of a parallax view as far as cost estimating, buildability of ideas, and some of the value engineering concepts that I've been having. How do we get the most bang for the buck? The construction manager has a foot in both the construction and design worlds and can help guide us and give us an independent opinion of some of those things, give you just guys another source of information. So what I need is a vote from the board saying that you want to kick off an RFP process. Now, actually, I don't know if we need a vote, because any contract for the eventual construction manager would come here for your approval. It's just, are we all in agreement? This is the thing that needs to happen. We're going to take Suzanne's recommendation and we'll get started on the RFP process. And you guys can decide who you want to be on the interviews and how we want to move forward.
I mean, just for the public, the risk in doing this obviously is the potential exposure if the bond goes down. I think that's always a risk, but I think my position is it's better to be prepared and get the best value. So that as you're assuming the bonds can pass, hopefully, and we're going to plan that way. So in doing it before the bond vote, it's a little bit unorthodox, I realize, but I think it's a worthy endeavor. That's the risk actually, is that we may spend money, and we the bond. So I think, you know, I would say it's a worthy endeavor to start. If they start speeding up the process, it's gonna be a process, and it's an RFP development. We have to figure out on the back end, you know, the wording of it, stuff that the board will be involved, so, but I do think it's a worthy endeavor.
How much does it cost? RFP just goes to you.
Yeah, I literally have no idea.
We don't have any like ballpark idea at all, okay.
But I would say too, for the public and anyone listening, that a construction manager would be vital for these large scale projects to keep everything on time and within budget and free from financial or legal complications. So I think it's good to move forward with that.
Any other?
Time frame is not before, would take likely a month at least,
At least,
right?
yeah,
So
that would be.
Oh, yeah.
you're looking at probably May before they're here, so.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's not really excessively in advance of.
No.
And you're just asking for permission to put out an RFP.
Right.
Yeah, so, and I think just to emphasize what Jeff said, the board committee would have to interview, the architect does not hire the construction manager, the board does. Because sometimes the construction manager may have to run interference between the architect and the libraries and the trustees, so they work for the library and not for the architect, but they work together on the project, but
Yes. It's even more important, I think, for us than the school district has a very competent facilities department, right? And for us, our maintenance staff is awesome. And, but I know I don't know enough to be able to run the project. So I think it's even more important for an organization our size than.
And they hire construction managers.
Absolutely.
On their bonds, and that when you see that trailer out there, and on there, that's the construction manager. Right, so, yeah.
So do you think we need a voter? And we can take a vote if you want, so I can move to authorize Jeff to start the RFP process for construction manager. I'll make that motion.
So do you need a motion or you need a vote?
I'll
Second it,
I'll make the
just
motion.
made it.
I'll second it.
Second, Michelle and Charmaine, any other discussion, questions? All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Okay, that motion is carried, so I think you have support of the board to do that. Election official.
Okay, this is just, for our special election in October, we will need to have an election official. So, this is just on here because it is of critical importance. And, there's no action to take specifically, but are you interested in having us move forward with this process now? I'd rather have this person on board sooner rather than later and help us identify someone who might be interested in performing this work and who knows a lot about it.
Has to be a district resident.
Has to be a district resident, correct.
And this would be a volunteer position?
It's usually paid. Yeah, it has been the school district comptroller for the past couple of comptrollers at the school district, which is that, we're basing a lot of what we're doing on the way the school district pulls their votes. So
You would just post the position like you would a regular non-civil service position?
because the contractor, it's not really a hire, as the civil service isn't going to come into it.
Right.
But I think if you have some folks you might be interested in reaching out to, it would be a good idea to have that discussion and bring some of those folks in.
Yeah, I think you're doing some targeted outreach on your own, correct? That's the best way to describe it.
Seems like a good idea.
That's all. I just need to know it's important.
Yes.
Like we need to have this
Yeah.
for that special election.
Yeah,
So it's just we wanted to hit it like a bell.
What are the duties of an election official?
Yes, that's a great question. They are the people who actually certify the vote. So
They run
yeah.
accountable entity to run the election. So make sure the machines are here, make sure the process is, orderly. But you're right, they have to certify, the results, so.
And the plan would be that the machines would be in here?
Correct. This room, we booked it all off. I mean, and I have a whole section about the vote. I'll tell you
Okay.
everything. I've
Okay.
learned a lot in the last month. I'll tell you everything.
All right.
Okay, moving on, the off-cycle check.
Okay.
Pass.
It's a super small check, but it came in after the board packet was put together. I would like your permission to pay this invoice for the Amelia Park Children's Museum. If I wait till next month, which is when it would normally fall in the cycle for approval, it would just be approved in the bill schedule. We wouldn't have it here in time for spring break. So I'd like it for here because museum passes are really popular for spring break. So asking for your permission, I need to vote on this because it's a authorization to rest.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
okay, all in favor, signify by saying yes, raise your hand. Motion's carried. Next one is the Chromebook purchase, page 30-31.
Great. So this is Chromebooks. We're proposing to purchase 10 Chromebooks, which are much more expensive than they used to be, by the way, but still cheaper than a laptop. And they're, our Chromebooks are for circulation. So the advantage of these over a regular laptop is that we can turn them off remotely. So if they're not returned in a timely fashion or not returned, they can be turned off. And a Chromebook doesn't function, unlike a laptop. There's still some functions that a laptop has if it isn't connected to the internet. The Chromebook, if it's not connected to the internet, doesn't. It's a very interesting tabletop
Decoration.
Yeah. Thank you. So this is over my limit, unfortunately, and we need to replace some of these that came in before the pandemic. So they're starting to die. They are out of warranty and have served their purposes.
So moved.
Actually, I have a question.
This is a motion and second on the question. Second motion.
Yes.
Caroline, second. Lisa, any questions?
Okay, thank you. I may have missed this. How many do you have in stock right now?
20.
20. So you're replacing 10.
Yeah.
Is there like a schedule or to do the, like are they on a regular kind of schedule? Or are you trying to develop that for replacement in general?
Right. So this is really we have deployed currently the essentially first and second generation of those. So we're not fully on the schedule yet, but it's been more than 4 years. So by any reasonable schedule, it's time for them to get replaced. So that would be our goal going forward. They tend to last a little bit longer because so much of the function that the Chromebooks do is based in the cloud. The hardware is a little less critical, but they take a beating and they don't last forever. So
If I remember correctly, Jeff, we had an initial kind of fleet of 10.
yes,
And then we bought another 10 at the height, I think, of the pandemic. So kind of to answer your question, Charmaine, it seems like the original 10
yes,
are now moving
Given
on.
up.
correct.
We have 10 that we purchased probably about two years ago.
During the pandemic, and they were even used. They were so
Yeah.
desperate to get them in. They
Yep.
were even
So, I mean, just to answer your question, it sounds like they're going kind of in packs of 10.
It might be interesting to just think about down the road is like, will there be a cycle? Like every year I'm coming for 5 new ones and we're retiring 5,
Yeah.
or every 2 years, or depending on usage, every 2 years I'm gonna come back for 10, or there's like some kind of general calendar schedule overall that you may have to leave at some point for some kind of emergency.
good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I need a motion, I have a motion and a second, I need a vote. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Seeing no opposition, that motion is carried as well. Okay, the next item is a request for reconsideration, pages 32 through 33 in your packet. So this is an appeal of Jeff's decision to not remove.
Correct.
Okay, so we have before the information. Evan, if there's any other information or questions people have. Any discussion? Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion to uphold Jeff's decision, which would keep the book in the collection.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
So just, you went through the basic process, so someone asked you to remove an item from it's a book,
Correct.
right, from the collection. You went through your regular review and you decided to keep that In the collection,
I did.
okay, yep.
Any questions, discussion?
I did my due diligence, as this is the first time, that I'm part of the board reviewing this, and I, reviewed the ALA guidance, and, I think it's all very consistent with this, with your decision, Jeff. So.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to keep the book in the collection, please by a reasonable hand. Seeing no opposition, that motion carries. Okay, the 24-25 budget. Sharon, I think you had a couple little changes. Updates.
Yes.
Okay.
There's really nothing significant changed in the budget, none of the numbers. But I did just tweak a few of the notes so that they were a little clearer, made a little more sense. And I also noticed that I had a bit of a formula error. It doesn't really impact anything too significantly, but I corrected that. Those are the only changes that we made from the budget that you saw last week. So, the overall budget is remained the same. The totals, the expenses for each of the categories remain the same. And, the cap that we're requesting remains the same.
So just for the record, the budget that we're asked to vote on tonight, 4.32% increase in tax levy,
Right.
which is under the tax cap because we have from last year. Correct.
Yeah, actually, 1.5% of that 4.3% represents the unutilized portion from last year that we're using now. But we are still under the levy, under the cap.
Okay, is there any questions on the things?
No, just one thing that, in case the public looked at this, for example, for the current budget, and you look at what's been spent in the over 6 months, not everything gets divided by 12 and then spent a 12th this month, the 12th that month. For example, some of the collection items may come in bulk at a certain time in that way. So it could be not deceiving, but not fully informed if you look at just what was budgeted for this year, what's been spent so far. So
Probably, I would think having that cushion or contingency is good practice, considering the price of Chromebooks keeps going up.
Right.
And there's no way that we can not use the extra percentage from last year and keep within the budget that we've put forward.
That's right. We wouldn't be able to balance the budget if we didn't use what was left over from last year, because we had some significant increases in wages because of the contract. And that's our biggest cost. I forget, I think it's like 70 some odd % of the overall budget.
that's
healthcare
not
costs.
unusual. It's salary
Healthcare
benefits,
costs,
usually 75% of a budget, and then everything else is the programmatic, or everything else comes out of the 25%.
And there are no new positions in this budget. It's basically all the positions are filled. And if we have turnover, we'll replace those positions. And we have a little bit of a turnover allowance in the calculation. If there's a 2 or 3 month period with a vacancy, we have a little bit of savings there. And sometimes when a new position is hired, they're hired at a lower salary because they're less experienced or whatever.
I was just going to comment, if sometimes turnover results in a lower cost for the position,
Right.
whether it's turnover or even retirement, so.
Right, exactly.
Any other questions on the budget? Okay, so I need a motion to approve the budget for 24-25.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying yes or raising your hand, seeing no opposition, budget is carried. Public meeting policy update.
Okay, that's me. Sure, why not? So we have, I don't, it's not in here because, we have made some significant progress on that policy, working with the attorney. there was not time to get it into the packet for tonight. So we don't have a new public meeting policy ready to present to the board tonight, but go shortly to the policy committee and to the full board, probably concurrently, for discussion. And then
Yeah, as you will recall, that the decision was made that once we got that material back from the attorney, it would go to the full board and not just to the policy committee. So just so we could, kind of facilitate, move that discussion along.
That leaves us in the predicament of the motion of December expires tomorrow. Therefore, the room reservation opens up, unless we take another action. So, so we need to talk about that, see what people's feelings are on that. If we do nothing, then the reservations are open tomorrow, the next day, on the existing policy. So, are people comfortable with that scenario? That's where it leaves us.
Is it reasonable to expect that we would be able to have action by the next board meeting on the new policy?
I hope so. I mean, I think so, but this is a controversy, this is a complicated question that we've all been wrestling with.
Right.
So I don't know, it depends on, people's reaction to the attorney draft. Which you haven't seen yet, so it's hard to answer that.
We'd have the text in order to approve it. I mean, it would be a discussion item, so it would depend on how many questions the board has. Do they need more time to think about it? But we'd have the text in time for the meeting.
Yeah.
The question is, would it be able to be read, understood, discussed, and approved?
I would say it's an unreasonable expectation. Well, not impossible. I think given the breadth of the new policy and the considerable changes to it, it would be unreasonable for the board to digest that in a single board meeting. Potentially, I imagine that members of the public may have some thoughts on it. I doubt that anyone would be in a position, again, while not impossible, I doubt anyone would be in a position to make a motion to approve it by the next board meeting. So I'll kick off discussion. I have been fairly consistent in my view on this, and I've thought about it extensively. And if I was a simple member of the public who came to the library and loved the library like so many members of our community do, I would want these meetings open, the meeting rooms opened tomorrow. Absolutely. I 100% understand that point of view, and that is something that I think everyone at this table wants for the library. But I'm not just a member of the public right now in this context. I am a library trustee who's been here for a while, and my views on this are very much shaped by what is best for the library, and that includes the staff and the director. And the logistics of a large program are something that was simply revealed that we are not in a position to deal with, because we don't have a policy in place that makes how to deal with those logistics clear. And when I say logistics, I mean the manner in which we may manage a First Amendment event, we'll call it. I think that, I'll go back to Jeff's example of, we have come to think of it as a pejorative thing, but Jeff's example of, if on Friday, we found out that there was going to be an impromptu Taylor Swift concert on Monday at the library, we would not know how to do that. Or we don't have a policy in place that would allow us to have certain manner restrictions to protect members of the public and to protect the staff from simple things like fire codes and, overcrowding and just in the staff, and not protecting them from the staff, but the staff being able to manage the crowd. And I think that we, great discussion from the public. People want to push questions. at this time, not for just our library, but for our library, for all libraries. And I think that if we were to open those rooms tomorrow, it would put our staff in particular in a really tough spot. And as a library trustee, I think that it's, you know, I can't speak for everyone, but I think it's my role to not put them in that position. So that's my kickoff to the discussion.
Thoughts?
Well, I hear everything that Caroline is saying, and it's such a good argument, but we were able to operate for many years under the current policy without issue. And yes, we are trustees, but we represent the people who elected us, and we've heard from many patrons that they want the meeting rooms open. So I'm a bit at an impasse. I don't know which way to go on this. My gut reaction is we need to reopen our meeting rooms because that's part of what we do. But I also agree with what Caroline has said as far as, you know, we do need a new policy and we're working on that. I don't know how long it's going to take to get there, and how long do we continue not to open the meeting rooms?
You know, Jeff, I haven't thought that much about this, but when we were talking about this, well, and why we gave it to the attorney, I remember we were talking about distinguishing between like business meetings or meetings for groups and events. Where like there could be speakers and it had to be open to the public and yes,
Size and scale.
I don't know if it's possible to distinguish those and just say, we'll open it for meetings, not events. I'm excited, I hear what Caroline's saying, but I remember we framed that whole discussion when we were trying to introduce the board, like how he was going about it, what how the attorney had advised us, and we had to distinguish between like the sewing club or the button club or, you know, Charmaine's reading group, having a meeting of that group versus Charmaine's group bringing in an outside speaker or even a community speaker, then that was open to public. Would I'm not sure, asking even trustees, would it be possible to lift the restrictions on meetings, but not events? Because we made that distinction last time.
Right, I think that, I too have been doing a lot of thinking about this, and I too have been listening to a lot of the members of the public, and I know there's most of the people I'm talking with want the rooms open. I'm sure it's the same thing that you're hearing directly from. I've been thinking about knowing the chances were that policy was not going to be here, and even if it was here tonight, I think it is a complex policy and probably would not be ready to be voted on tonight for next meeting for all of the reasons that you guys have said. The only thing that kind of gets at, Charmaine, what you're talking about is we could place a capacity limit on the room that exists under the board policy right now. That it's the only thing that gets at, it's the only thing I think that gets at what you're talking about is some scale, that's a neutral manner restriction. I don't know that it prevents misuse of the rooms. So it's not a perfect solution, but it's
No, I think
the only manner restriction I can think of that would get at a little bit pushed.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it too, actually. I think if you did a policy that said interim for each house or from tomorrow or whenever the current term expires till whenever we have approval of the policy, that we can reserve rooms up to 50 patrons or up to 50 people. And in this room, and then up to like, I don't know, 25 in that boardroom. That's the only rooms that we're talking about, because the story room is not affected, right? So that would then, as an interim policy, that would cap large events It wouldn't say which, people could reserve it, if they had a library card, they could reserve the room, but there's a capacity of 50 here and 25 there. It's an interim measure.
So just to clarify. As of tomorrow, if we lift the pause, we're talking
Pause is
about,
lifted unless we do something.
yes.
Yeah.
We would be allowing events, usages of the room for what period of time? Because there already are meetings and uses on the books
Right.
that had previously been,
It's
Requested.
so absent any changes to the policy, which again, I don't think we're interested in making fundamental changes to the policy at the meeting. But losing your question a little bit, the uses would be those nonprofit, the existing policy, the policy that exists right
Yeah.
now would be what would be enforced. So it's the.
so really
nonprofit
no one's
use.
been able to reserve from what time period on?
From when we ended
In December.
at the December board meeting till now, there's been no new
Right.
reservations, so existing reservations. Sorry.
Through
thank
what
you.
date?
6 months.
Okay, that's what I was asking
Yeah, I
you.
lost it. I'm talking, my fault. 6 months. 6 months is, so that's, we're coming. We're not to the end of that time period yet, but we're coming in on, you can
We
see,
are.
and if I roll back to the stats report, you'll see that public use of the meeting rooms drops because long-standing meetings have been going on, whereas new use of the meetings, the shorter term requests,
Right.
in particular lip sync and all of those things have not been.
Right.
So that's,
So if I want to reserve a meeting today. For, every Tuesday for the next 6 months, not available, if that's not an option.
correct.
If I had that reservation before the policy, I can keep it.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, after, when that expires, the moratorium on new reservation expires. We can put an interim policy that says you can reserve this room, but your capacity can't be more than 50 in that room. And until the new policy kicks in. So I wouldn't put a time on, say, till the prescribed policy is effective.
How are we
But
gonna
still-
implement that?
Well, it still would be for
Well, you can do
the
it for
next
4
6,
months.
well,
Yeah.
okay,
I mean,
do it for 6 months.
yeah, because, or you can, right, you can do it for 6 months, and then, in that 6 months, we'll have a new policy.
Or sooner?
Or sooner, right, and the sooner you put it over, supersede. You can put it right in the policy that supersedes current practice.
So I like that approach, and I like that everyone is trying to find a compromise and trying to find a way to get this done. That is the way that I think most things should be done. At the same time, I think we can all agree that the challenges with the old policy took a lot of the library's time and resources for a significant period of time. My fear about a interim policy that is done fairly quickly is that those resources would be spent again doing nothing but answering questions and figuring out how to navigate the interim policy. I'm not sure if that is a good use of library resources at this moment. I think a really good use of library resources is to work toward a comprehensive policy that answers all of those questions and that we're ready for when it rolls out. And that, we're not, and I want to be careful about the adjective I choose, because I think that Jeff and I think that the staff and I think the board would try their very best to make that policy work, but it would be an ad hoc process. It would be, now we're faced with this question, let's try and answer that. Now we're faced with, as opposed to a comprehensive policy. And while that doesn't eliminate questions, it does mean that we have some fundamental stuff. So I am not disagreeing with that approach. Again, I love a good compromise. I'm just pointing out that I do think, Jeff, that approach could take up a lot of your time.
I'm gonna ask the director, what's your recommendation?
I told you I was
I
gonna
know
ask
you'd love to
this.
ask me
Yeah.
that question.
Well, did every?
Yeah, he can say, but other
People can invade, yeah.
I mean, I was gonna ask that question, what, is there something we can come up with in the interim? I feel like Michelle a little bit, like, this was fine for how many years, but now it's on everyone's radar and so, it's really, there's a lot of uncertainty, but I would like us to try to find a way to do something. And I'm just wondering if there are other restrictions we could put on place, like could we put a time restriction, like you can only have a meeting you can only reserve the room for an hour or something. I don't know if that would help. But if we just try to limit, we open it up as much as we can for those regular meetings that people really rely on the space for, but we try to contain it somewhat so that it doesn't become an opportunity for people who may be looking for other uses of the library.
Trustees.
Well, I feel like I've said a couple times and I want like a percentage, I guess, or I feel like my perception is that like 85 to 95% of our usage is just like these regular meetings, right?
Yes.
So I don't want to get bogged down. Like if we think this policy is just going to bridge us for like, let's say 60 days till we can get the other policy in place, how many problematic or more complex, events are there really going to be in that time period that are going to need our resources? Is it 1 or 2 or 20?
Right.
Or none. Yeah.
So, okay, so I have talked with the staff who would be actually implementing this. I think there is a great deal of desire to get the rooms open as we can because they're dealing directly with the public. The questions that we're getting from the public are those. I'm receiving a few. You guys have seen some comments. The staff that are responsible for booking the rooms are receiving them
Daily.
a lot. And the reason I put forth the idea of the capacity, because it is a neutral manner restriction that doesn't actually require a change to the existing policy. So we're not writing policy here at the meeting. It's just a change in the room capacity. That's already set by the board. So, and I think, set that number wherever it needed to be. I think so let me express the will of the staff, I think, would be that we get the solution, as counterintuitive as that is. I think blows up in our face, that's not gonna be a great look. And Caroline, I'm super sensitive to what you're saying. So that's my best solution. So I got that would be my recommendation, because I don't have anything else that gets at that. And if we set the capacity, I considered saying, set it at 25. Treat this room just like the board. Treat it exactly like the board, and keep it to super small meetings. I think that is workable. That would be better. That would allow the sort of lip sync uses, and a lot of our meetings are under 30. It's 30 people with tables. That's the meetings that we have. And it is just a ton of them. That's what people do. It's lip sync. It's other small groups. We do have a couple large groups. I think that would be really disappointed by that. I think the Progress Club, the Bethlehem Art Association, and some of our larger longstanding groups would not be happy with a capacity of 25 or 30. And so that's where the number, the 50 or 55 number, doesn't come out of nowhere, because very few, surpassingly few reservations are for more than 15. And it's the only way I can get at that event V meeting. We don't have anything in the policy. There's nothing for me to hang my hat on in the current policy. We'd have to sit down and sort of take an hour here and write up something. I think we end up with bad policy.
I mean, I'll make a motion to establish an interim meeting room reservation.
Just change the capacities of the room. If you're going,
Okay.
if you're going in my direction,
Right,
then just change to say, set the capacity of this room at 55, the capacity of the boardroom at 25.
for the purposes of meetings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's everything that happens,
Yeah, not our events.
not our events.
Correct.
Okay, then change the capacity for the boardroom to 25, changing the capacity to this room to 50. 55. And that would be limited if we're, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 months.
Do you need to put a time frame on it, just say we're gonna lift it for a period until the new policy is adopted?
There's gotta be some pressure on us to actually get a new policy.
Right, because I think the board will keep moving on things, but it's just a matter of until the new policy adopted. And I would propose an amendment. I mean, people can think about Mark's numbers. I would say 40. You know, but I want to keep it small. And then we could almost.
I don't wanna disparage the funds. They have 50 people, like, you know. That's it. And only 40 can come to the meeting? I mean,
Right, it's weird.
it's weird.
So if you're using a time frame, you're going to allow reservations through a certain period of time, but not after.
Right, 6 months.
Is that what that sort of,
That's the policy says
Right.
now. So without changing that policy, it's 6 months from now. So that's, if we're leaving that policy in place and trying to leave it as much in place, that's that would be the time frame. So just whatever reservations get made under that policy.
Right.
And then
assuming we implement the new policy, people could make reservations for that time period, if the rooms of it are available. You know, in advance.
Right, so I would say, and this is, you cannot quote me on this, but I would say about half of the rooms get booked well in advance by people who understand how our systems work and are booking the rooms out constantly, and they want the third Thursday of every month. About half of our meetings like that, and about half of our meetings are much more, hey, the baseball team, Booster Club wants to meet here, and they don't have the same kind of, they're not looking 6 months out, they're looking next month, this month, what's available. So some are tactical, so maybe about half strategic, about half tactical. And I think the other thing that I contemplated, I only say it to hold it up, would just say, hey, rooms are available, first come, first serve. I think down that road lies chaos, like literally show up at the library, you can have a meeting, which happens. We do that now.
Yeah.
If someone comes here and people are studying and all the study rooms are taken, we'll put people in the boardroom because it's silly to have the room sitting there empty. We'll put a couple people in there. I think trying to have people who want to have meetings here under that would be, Carol, to your point, would be an absolute nightmare to administer. So.
Can I ask a question? Do we reserve the right to say, you know what? We see some potential, you know, we did this, we see some issues, we are canceling all meetings, you know, August on, do we have?
The policy right now.
We do,
So,
right? We
yeah.
have the ability, if we saw problems, we could.
Not
Okay.
popular, but.
No, not, but there's an out, you know, so to speak, for us.
Plus,
if-
there's a
if-
board meeting every month, so,
Right.
you know, anyone can bring a motion at any point, I think. So, okay, so I made a motion to change the room capacity to 25 in the boardroom and 50 in this room. Any second motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Jeff, could I just ask, is it possible for the library to send an email or notify the people who've been reaching out all this time?
What a
To
great
say,
idea.
hey, the meeting room,
Love that idea.
okay.
Yeah, it's all queued up and ready to go. I'm not joking. Thank you. It's, I think, one of the most common questions we've had from people are, will you tell us when they're open? Because as much as we think maybe people are following our meetings along, many people aren't. So, yeah.
Can I just say something? I love the board being constructive despite my vote. My vote is my own, but I appreciate the board being constructive. And for the benefit of the public, I think it's important to say that these meeting rooms were never closed as a punishment to anyone or as an attempt to lessen controversial speech. This was about logistics of the library and having to deal with, with some new challenges, some new just logistical challenges. And I feel like there has been that intent has been twisted by some, and I don't think that is the intent of anyone at this table. We are just looking to make sure that the library can continue to function and do so legally.
My biggest, Caroline, thank you. I think that my biggest takeaway is just how woefully unable to manage a crowd with little warnings that we are. And I think the vulnerability, you hear the reticence in my voice and you hear that nervousness. It's genuine. And I think it's, it's one thing for me to say, oh, I'm going to throw myself into a situation, and quite a different thing for me to say, what staff person are we going to throw into a situation? So it's, yeah. And I think
And to clarify, the pause was on new reservations too. Everything was already in the books, was kept on the books. It was a pause on new reservations with the hopes that we'd have a much more comprehensive policy, and we're working on it.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that. I'd also like to say, again, we've said it in the past, but I would encourage members of the community to put pressure on other organizations within the community to open up community spaces for these events because and uses. The library shouldn't be the only place in this town that they can meet. So there's the call to the public that is wanting to use the space and potentially maybe more space if the bond goes through and we increase our availability, but that's not really appropriate, in my opinion.
One more quick comment, just anticipating that there will be comments from the public on both this decision and the future policy. We heard from a lot of people this year who have told us that they care a great deal about the library and they are interested in our policies. They're interested in our programs and they're interested in how the library runs. And that's great. It is now a time when people have the opportunity to run for the board. And it is my understanding that, I think that all of us, we talk to people who may be interested in it. And I think that a lot of the impression that the board is getting is that a lot of people are being very shy about picking up petitions and making that commitment. So if you are interested in these policies, I say to the public, and if you are interested in the library, now is the time to make that decision. And I commend fellow board members, Laura and Michelle, who even after a very tough year, have chosen to take on that challenge again and go get petitions and commit themselves. So as we make these decisions that we know don't make everyone happy, I just want to point that out.
Any other comments? I would second or third all of those comments, frankly. They're very well said. Okay, so moving on to naming opportunities policy, first read on page 36.
Great, so the policy committee had gotten some feedback, particularly on two areas. As you see, this policy is the text appears in item number 1 and in number 8, basically granting the trustees, the board of trustees, either the right to grant or rescind naming opportunities at their absolute discretion, and then in number 8, to terminate a naming designation for any reasons. We were asked by the board to consider those two areas, and particularly a donor had also asked us, and the policy committee discussed that and felt like that text should stay as written. And the other thing was there was a guidance document on, I call price points. That was never really part of the policy. And since we were getting bogged down, but we knew there was some discussion and wanted to do some more work on that. Since it wasn't part of the policy, it doesn't appear now as part, in conjunction with the policy. It's more of a guidance document. If people wanted to approach the director and say, hey, I have this much money to consider donating, or I would want to have a collection named after so-and-so, how much, so we can continue to work on those price point documents as a guiding document. But this is a policy is up now for first read. And by the way, the first read, second read thing, that's just something we've been using for the last year. If people want to just flat out approve it, that's fine with me. I think the policy committee would be fine with that also. But this is consistent with the procedures we've been using for the last year or so. This is now up for first read. It's basically any lot more discussion or any further changes that the full board wants the policy committee to consider. Otherwise, it's open. And I want to thank Jeff and the committee and Jen, who worked really hard on this policy, and we did consider the board feedback. And this is our recommendation is the policy should remain as written.
Okay, thanks. People want to vote on it now, or you want to go for the second reading?
It's a first read, right? Don't we?
So,
So I just wanted to say, I know that I had been one of the ones that was vocal on the terminating for any reason wording. It just depending, not this board, but future boards, depending on their cohesive political leanings, it makes me think of removing statues. And so that's why I have been from the beginning against using that type of language that says the library can decide just to take away your naming designation and not return the funds, and yeah, I'm still not in favor of that.
I don't have I support including that. I have nitpicky, like a typo or whatever. Do you want that after? I can email just like a couple of very small.
Yeah, if there's grammatical cleanup, we can always bring it back on a second reading.
okay, hope the public looks at the policy as well and weighs in on their thoughts. We'll schedule that for the next board meeting as well. Moving on to the building project, pages 37 to 39.
Nice color chart, right? So, basing this on a chart that we got from the architect, and with lots of work by Jen, thank you. Integrating in documents and information that we received from the Albany County Board of Elections and our meeting with the school district. We have some dates. Basically, here's what we're running forward with. We're running forward with a vote on October 1st in the library, in this room. It will run all of the regular hours that the school district vote runs, the same number of hours as a typical vote. We talked about the election official that the board has to name in order to run the election. I've talked to we've sent an email to the Board of Elections, and it's everybody at the Board of Elections. You spam them with your request. We'll have 3 machines, just like the school district does. That's the number of machines they request based on our population. We have learned a lot about the printing and the voting, and the school district very generously was trying to find a way to allow us to use their electronic voter roll software, but it is tied to their student software, and they cannot grant us access to that software. It's wholly that's core to what they do. It's like handing out circulation information would be for the library. We're not doing that. So they have agreed to print the voter rolls for us, and we'll have that as they used to before they got the electronic version. It was a verification based on that print. We've also asked for the voter roll document from the Board of Ed, but they're based in the county. Their borders don't match exactly the school district, so our voters are the school district voters, so we have to uphold to that. And there is also same-day registration, a new early voting provision which the school district will be implementing this year for the first time, so we're gonna learn from their experience this year, and we have to get the ballots printed out for absentee ballots as well. How many ballots we get printed, where we get those printed. So we've got a bunch of these tentative dates marked in this, and this is super drafty, but we thought it was best to have something to hang our hat on and just keep track of all the sort of top end dates that we have to hit as we enter seeker information and all of this other aspects that this will all populate on this document live, and I'll keep bringing it back up and bringing it back to you for just for information as we continue forward. So it will cost us about the school district estimates about $12,000 to run a special election. That's the there's staff report. Go ahead.
Do you need 3 voting machines? Because I'm thinking the district usually sets up in the gym, so just like in terms of space and all the rest, why 3 is that the
It's
recommendation?
based on the population of the voting population. So that comes right from the Board of Ed. It depends on how big the school district is, that how many machines we get. So while we may not need them, I don't know, because we haven't.
Do you mean Board of Elections?
Thank you, BOE
Okay.
keeps getting me.
I was
I
like,
appreciate that.
why is Board of Ed involved in this?
And do we pay per machine? Like, do we rent them? Like, okay, so there's a couple of things.
Cost.
I did go through this, and one thing I would recommend, I'm gonna ask my colleague here, because I know she's on the president's council of the district. Because I know that we'd be potentially going to a president's council PTA meetings in the fall, and I haven't been a PTA president like decades ago. I know that the September meeting is always, full of other stuff. So I would ask you if you think that the director and maybe some board members might attend a president's council meeting. President's council is the presence of all the PTAs and all the student groups and all the people, once a month or something like that.
It's every other.
Oh, is it every other month now?
Yeah,
Okay,
and so we just had it today, so it'll be 2 months.
like May.
Yeah.
Think about going to that meeting just to introduce the project, say we might be coming to you in September. Hi, so they're not getting hit in September when they're trying to get their schools up and running and get the parents engaged and join the PTA kind of stuff. To do at least some kind of preliminary, if it's an existing meeting, kind of captive audience, to do some preliminary, even if it's just not a presentation on the project, but some paper stuff. This is what we're about, this is the date. What do you thought?
Well, I mean, I don't control the president's, like
No, yeah.
Jody does,
Yeah.
so like you would have to talk to her if she wants you to come to that or not. I feel like from the individual PTA perspective, I think you come in September. So it's close in people's minds. I feel like if you come in like May or June, it'll fall.
Yeah, no, I think the president's council is just introduce the project
Yeah.
and then go to the individual meetings in September, but you don't want to spring it on PTAs in September saying, we want to come to your meeting. So you can always harken back saying, remember, we came to you in May, we would now like to engage you individually, if that's going to be the strategy. So at least they have some introduction, they might hopefully heard about it, but I think, again, the president, if Jody Monroe, whoever does it, says, can we have 5 minutes of your meeting, just to say, this is what we're doing. We'll be approaching you, if that's the will of the board, the strategy, to come to meetings, like a really big push, but I think it's just a nice kind of, taste of it. So that's just a thought.
So I want to make sure, draw poll books, election, number of machines, early voting. We have some questions about absentee ballots, just sure. Backing this up, I don't want to run through this point by point. I don't see in learning all that I've learned in the last month about running the election. I don't see any roadblocks that would prevent it from happening. I was watching and sort of listening, trying to be aware of anything that I would say, oh, this, there's some insurmountable, right, some ton of work, but it's just work. There's nothing that seems to prevent this. The next month, I expect I will be coming to you with a proposal for bond council. I think it's important that we get the bond council there. The writing of the actual referendum is critical, probably the most critical piece of legal writing that we do, and that can't be wrong. So, we'll do that you know, I'll certainly get some recommendations from the school district for you. If you want to branch out into different directions, that's all possible for you.
What day of the week is October 1st, do you know?
It's Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think everybody, when I was talking at the Board of Elections, Tuesday was the assumption. So I don't know whether that's the law or not, but that's what we're doing. It's just no reason to mess with it.
Right.
And we have the room already booked off. So if we open up the rooms open up. Those will not be available on October 1st. I've taken all the rooms. You can't have them.
The board reserves the room.
The board reserves a room for October 1st.
And October 2nd, right? You
And
said-
second, yeah. Yeah, because there's a large counting. There's a large accounting thing that has to happen with the number of non-live votes that happen that just seem to be, they continue to proliferate in these different methods. We just have to make sure we're accommodating this. So your election official will be the knower of that.
So there's a board meeting.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. We have to cert, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
We
you
have
got
to
certified. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Yep. Anything else that I want to talk about? Board project, you have some packet information from the architects giving you some choices. The second packet that went out today, I delivered it to you in the paper. I don't know if you want it in paper or not, but I'm giving it to everybody in paper.
Yeah.
It's a good one in paper.
Yes.
It's a lot, there's a lot going on there. So they are interested in a working session with the trustees at some point in the reasonably near future. So I'll be putting out some of those contacts for you. And I think that's everything I have to say about the vote, unless there's any questions for me.
Is something happening on the 20th, March 20th, isn't there?
Yeah, that's a charrette with the trustees about sustainability. So Ashley McGraw is as a firm is very much into designing sustainability into all of their designs. I think they're interested in talking to you about what level or what specific interest. We've already made a decision. One of the biggest things the building can do is about the HVAC system, the heating source. I think we've already made a very sustainable choice there. I think there's a lot of other choices. And I think they're just interested in getting some feedback on you about how much they bake right into the project from the beginning.
I will miss that meeting. I'll be in Chicago.
On the design options, the first one you sent us, or the Ashley McGraw sent us on the loop. We're asking for trustees to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I've heard from most of you
Okay.
now.
And there'll be further discussion on that at some point, I assume. Okay.
I mean, actually, McGraw would love an answer. 2 weeks, but
Well, was the idea that we talk about it then tonight? I mean, I was. Because if you want to talk about it,
Actually, I would like to talk about it. I'm not waiting.
I was, what do you call it?
Oh, yeah.
Blinded, what is that?
Blindsided.
By the fact that that they didn't want the drive up window so I would like to know what the staff, what the impetus was for
Why
that
don't we
suggestion.
let's frame it a little bit. So the design options that were presented to us, just for everyone on the video as well, were 2 different design options. One of them has the aspect of a drive up window. One of them does not have that aspect. The other aspects of the design choices are a closed loop or a kind of open loop. Does that give a good pretty?
Good. Thank you. Yeah.
So I first looked at that, I had no idea what they were saying, so it took me a while to figure that out.
Well, I think I was in the meeting with Jeff and the staff when they talked. So it's basically a matter of. Well, and I'm sure Jeff would know, but basically if you don't want people to have no sidewalk, then you can have people drive up to the window. You know, what people say that you want them to cut across the loop, but if you want people to have a sidewalk there. The staff then have an overhang that people pull up like they do now, and the staff would go under the overhang, give them the book. That's how you get to set a sidewalk.
Yeah.
That's basically the only difference between those 2 signs.
Right.
Like there's a 1A and there's a 1B.
Right.
Plus the loop is closed in 1B.
Which could happen. I think the loop could be open or closed either way.
Separate thing.
Right, but
Presented as closed.
right, if the first option, the the pedestrians or bicyclists would have to cross over multiple.
The road part.
times. Yeah.
And then the 1B gives them a sidewalk, but
Oh.
then, and then the staff walk out under an awning, which would be built. And then, so just kind of like here, except it's like a permanent kind of thing to walk. Is that, Jeff? Is that correct?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get a picture
Yeah.
up here, that's so that we can kind of, because I don't have that board, that
It's not
packet.
in that
available for you. If I can get a,
It's totally separate.
I know, but I don't.
Yeah, I know, I have it on email, but I didn't
This
bring
is
my
good enough. Okay,
iPad.
in a second.
So where would you think there would need to be a sidewalk if there was?
Good, okay, so right, so if
Here.
you wanna, we're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
So basically, the two questions they're asking you are, do you feel that the loop itself should be connected to the rest of the parking lot? That's question one, and it's separate from the other question. So there's two sort of independent questions here. The first one is, ought it be connected, or there's already a curb cut here. At the little house, there's already a driveway that exists there, so we're not asking for an extra curb cut. It would just be here. There'd be a separation between these two. And then people would come in, do the loop. And leave, and you could put your book drop here, and you could just be a place for people to drop off people, because the entrance would be right here. So that's question one. Should it be connected or not? Does coming in here and turning down, whether there's a separate entrance here, or this is the only entrance exit to the library, does it add complexity, too much complexity to the design, overall design of the driveway, if people have to come in, turn right, come down here, loop in here, and leave in order to pick up? So that's question one. That's their first question. The second question is, that right now, the way it's designed is that people would turn down this side of the loop. So you'd be coming in and turning down here, because you'd have to.
What? Well, then your window.
No, the
You
other
have to
way.
go the
No,
other
you gotta
way.
go the other way. Sorry,
It's like-
spatial.
I have to a few times.
You gotta go this
Like-
way, so that your driver's side would be right next to the building. So it's just an artifact of the fact that it's on this part of the building. You come in, slide all the way in, turn around, and then your window ends up here, and then you leave, cross traffic, turn left, and go out. So if you want a drive-up window, and it's gonna be here, that's the only way to make the approach to the drive-up window work. Additionally, people who are coming from Delaware Avenue, this is the sidewalk out on Delaware, would come up here, because this entrance is no longer exists, right? So people would come up, walk along the side of the building on a paved walk, up along, and then here, cross traffic, such as it is, along this sidewalk, and then cross here, and then enter into the library then. Okay, so that's an option. The other way, whether it's attached or there's a separate entrance here, would be to leave space here so that people would enter, come in here, turn right, and that would put their passenger side of their car next to the library, leave a walkway right along this side of the building, and then a covered canopy basically all the way out here with good lighting and some coverage for the weather. Still doesn't require our patrons to get out of their cars, but does require the staff to go outside for a given definition of outside, but in a more protected way than happens now, and allows us to have a walkway right here and then enter into the building right here without having to cross. So we actually asked them to say, some of this is the weirdness of having the driver's side window next to the building is an artifact of the fact that the loop is on this physical side, that we drive on the right-hand side, and this is on this side of the building. The only other way to make the driver's side next to the window, they did look at putting a loop in herely and basically put the circulation department here, which would put a more natural right turn or easy left turn into this area, put circulation here, have the window here, and then have people loop out and head out that way. That means people drive further through the lot overall and takes away the green, which we explained to them wasn't particularly possible, it wasn't particularly popular, and I didn't even have them present that to you as an option. So that's the question that's at issue here.
Do you know off the top of your head? I know you mentioned this number earlier, so how many curbside pickups are we doing?
260 a month.
And then what's the door count of the pedestrian door?
Oh, that is a good question. No, I mean,
the Delaware.
the Delaware Avenue. Okay. We're gonna, a solution is being thought of, an answer is being
Okay.
pondered right now.
I mean,
Do you see what I'm getting at? Like,
I don't think
you know.
either of those solutions are good.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's good feedback. Let's go back to the drawing. Give me another option.
Well, we might not have to go back to the drive.
Yeah.
I mean, for different reasons, but
Right.
you know, having people cross the traffic that's insane.
It's only two.
Well,
well, that was.
it would depend on how many pedestrians we
I
have.
mean, as someone with little, I think as a former member of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, I feel like it is, if we have the opportunity to design this in thinking about all users of the library. And I walk, I bike, and I drive here. So I really tried to envision all of those uses. I think we have to do something that is safe, especially because we have so many children coming here and so many of us walk here or use strollers or something. So I think.
How many come from Delaware? Because people
Well,
come,
that-
people do
Go ahead.
walk there.
well, we're getting rid of it.
1,300 a month?
Okay.
1,300 a month.
So 1,300 a month come in the Delaware Ave door, and we're doing 260
Curbside pickup.
curbside pickups.
Yeah.
But the window is also gonna be for just book drop too.
Well, it wouldn't be,
Right,
so
or-
probably we would,
Doesn't have to be.
so if we were gonna have a loop in this area, in this seal area. Especially if it was cut off, it seems silly to have it just for curbside pickup. I think you'd have the book drop over here because it's so close to an entrance to the circulation area. So that people, there's a lot of whip around traffic. So right now, people, if you can imagine, they come in the entrance, you come in here, you do that little short turnaround and then you end up right kind of in this area and you drop your books in the book drop and you drive on out. That's a common use. So if you put the book drop and you had a separate loop, you could easily take a lot of that traffic out and away. What we were trying to envision in you know, sort of our conversations with Phil and circulation staff, I am not enamored with having the staff have to go outside on days. It doesn't even have to be super cold. It can just be windy like today, you know, where the signs are blowing around. So in an ideal world, there would be a solution that would allow for people to pick up through their car, and that's, you know, that's this, right? And there isn't any place else. I know where Suzanne's getting from. Really, the only other place is back over here someplace. So can we make that, or as we were envisioning pickup, what does it mean? Can we have a place for people where they don't, is the important part that there's a window, or the important part that there's a place where people who are unable to leave, do not want to, or are unable to leave their cars, and that's that 260 people. I'm not discounting that in any way, shape, or form. I don't want that number to be that. The people who are using it, many of them, that they need that, or you know, you've got two babies asleep in the car seat. That's what I see a lot. I go out, there's a kids in the back seat, and unpacking those kids and getting them out of the car. So I think, can we create a protected enough space that has some cover for the staff, is well lit and safe and available? So
We're envisioning like some kind of chute.
Or maybe it has some kind
Like
of
a bank.
size. It's, you know, that's not their job. You say we want that space where they walk out. It's gonna have a roof, but we wanna have some, I mean, and they have to make it a certain.
Right.
Is there any way to put a door, a smaller door, not a really obtrusive door, I don't know, right at the end of the walkway before you hit the circle? I mean, I know that's gonna go into where staff circulation is, but
like down here,
Down there. Right?
yeah, like right there.
another possibility.
I will, I mean, isn't that what Lisa's been asking?
Saying that for a long time.
Like, it does seem like in general, not just because of these issues with the parking and the driving, it's a long way to walk.
It
from the
is.
front of the building all the way around to the back. If there was a way to put a door on the front, even if it was just.
Well, I mean, and it's long, and if you go out there and walk it, you're walking up the hill and around not great landscape, and I know we would redo it, but it's not the most pedestrian favored.
Because that would solve the problem of it being so far to walk, and it would solve all this problem. We could just have the loop and we don't have to worry about people crossing it and.
I mean,
the
you
staff
might
gets-
want to make sure you still had bike racks or
Right,
something
right.
on that side of the building, but there's space to do it. They're there now.
Is the concern with having an entrance there is that I mean, I get the way the entrances are set up now, like they're away from where you're doing the library things. So I guess the problem there would be, although I really like the solution, is that then you have an entrance straight into the library things, and we try to avoid that. Weather coming in and things like that. But it seems like having no architectural knowledge whatsoever, it seems like it could happen.
I mean, absolutely could happen. That's not an issue. The question is, anyway, I'll propose it to them.
Yeah, we should push back and say,
They're desperate for your input.
Yeah.
They want your thoughts, so.
Well, I'm just wondering, why do we have the second, well, I think that we have this second door kind of near where the curbside pickup, there you go. That's for large meetings. I mean, why is that door there? Because we have the main entrance.
We do. So really, the thought was to reduce the walking distance from the parking lot to the inside of the building. Is one of our core tenets and has been expressed by so many patrons. So knowing that this lot would continue to exist, right? It has to be up here for the bulk of the parking. This is how we shorten up that entrance. But Borthwick Avenue really becomes a face of the library, which it isn't right now. It really, what are you looking at? The garage and a little bit of the back of the building. So because this would be opened up a little bit more, trying to make this accessible for walkers off Borthwick, super quick, boom, in here, walk, you're here on the sidewalk, walk into the building, boom, you're in the building.
And I think some of those spaces supposed to be handicap spaces. On that.
They are.
That end, yeah, that's.
So your handicap is gonna be likely to be here and then
On the side,
possibly
yeah,
here.
yeah.
But they would only be placed there if there was a door there. Right? If
Correct.
we didn't have a door there, you wouldn't place handicap parking there. You would,
Right, it would be,
Yeah.
this is the sort of the
Keep it
main
open
door.
or
Would be
something.
open this area.
and then my other question is, I see there's parking in the pickup area.
This
But if
is an
that
older,
was-
so that this is from schematic design, so I
Okay.
just wanted.
So
just to
that's
be able
not
to-
really there. All right,
I think that was an early comment to say,
gotcha.
I just don't have I wanted us all to be looking at something. It's easier to look at something, even though it's a little bit of an older picture. So yeah, this parking was one of the first things to leave because of the complexity of this coming in here, swinging around, and then having people back up into the space looked dicey. But one of the questions that were asked for was to maximize parking. So they've been asked several times to say, how many parking spots can we cram onto the land? And that was, these parking spots here and these parking spots here were towards that goal of maximizing the parking spaces. Fundamentally, there is an issue with that there's not enough property. That's it. You want a fundamental
That's
issue.
the issue.
That's a fundamental issue of this entire thing. And I look at Clifton Park and I look at all the land that they
Or
have. around.
Guilderland.
So, right, or Guilderland. So it's not a choice of green space or
There's
sufficient
multiple
parking
parking lots.
competing with the size of the building. All of those things are in absolute tension here. It's a zero sum game. There's no more property to be had here. It is what it is. And to get more parking, which, not everybody likes, I don't love hardscape. I'd love for there to be less hardscape, but we have to be able to accommodate when the parking lot fills up. People want to come here, they have to be able to drive here. So there's no way to do that. And, all of these things are all about how do we maintain the best balance of building size, green space, and parking. So. It's not easy, these are not easy choices. These are all difficult choices that all have serious negatives. And it's just the positives outweigh the negatives.
Any other feedback or questions? We encourage people to fill the forms out if they haven't already, like myself. And Jeff, we can obviously talk more to you. Yeah, it's just that they're large.
We do. They're really interested. I mean, this is the design development isn't just a phrase. They are literally developing this design right now. And it's the, you know, I've been saying to a lot of the staff as we head along, I'm saying, it's not time for where goes where, what particular little part of the desk goes where. It's been big conceptual pieces that are we're still there a little bit, moving blocks around the building, but we're getting down to the point where we're going to be making some of these hard choices about, the question is the loop drives the fact that circulation has to be here. Right. And so there were some comments from some staff and some board members about trying to get all the staff together in one area. But you can't do that and have the loop here. So if the loop isn't here, how does curbside happen? And, because I think it's a critical service that we continue in some way, shape, or form. How do we do that if it's not here? Doesn't make sense anyplace else. I'm happy to show you the design over here, but
I want to emphasize that I like the loop, not just for the curbside. I think it has tremendous
Carol,
value.
you used a mic.
Oh, sorry. Normally I project. No one has ever asked,
Never indicated that I was too quiet before. No, I think the loop is important, not just for the curbside, even though I think that's what we're focusing on. As you point around the whip around traffic for the book drops, that's huge. And so I don't want that to get lost in the discussion that we're caught up on curbside stuff. There's a lot of value to that, I think.
and just drop off. Sorry.
Well, you had said that the majority of us, I know I already submitted my comments on this, but now tonight we've talked about the possibility of putting a door back on the Delaware Avenue side. So, I mean, I know Lisa hasn't put in hers and maybe that'll be in there, but so are we gonna get that information? Okay.
She's going to hear that from me no matter
Okay.
what.
All right.
There's enough of you.
Yay.
Yeah, well, I didn't want it just to come from one person and then they say, well, only one of you wanted that,
That's good.
Is she coming to our next meeting? Well, like you said you want a work session, but I'm not sure what does that mean? I thought I heard you say that architect wants another work
She
session.
does. She does.
So it'll be outside of a regular board meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
But if you want me to invite her to the next board meeting,
Well, either that or we'll have a meeting before
Yeah.
that and then.
Okay, is there any other, there also is purposes of the YouTube, there's also another design packet we were given today that there's no way that I don't think anyone's guaranteed. But we're asked to look at the design packet as well. It's in community spaces and some other key decision points, so I asked the board members to look at this packet as well and provide their feedback to Jeff. There's three different questions.
what's a reasonable deadline for yourselves to get this to be?
Week.
Get it back in what format? What exactly are you looking for?
Well, there's questions.
Three questions at that end.
I mean, I'm literally just seeing this right now.
I understand that.
Okay.
So the decision points are these three. And then
Okay.
as you go through the packet.
Okay.
One weekend in there to look at this, like, so
Okay.
like next
Yes, it's a week.
Monday.
So
Is a week sufficient?
I think so.
This one?
Is a week sufficient?
If I
I can do.
Okay.
There was one thing on the telescoping seating, I see that's in here. And I know way back at the beginning, Kevin had given us a little report, so to speak, where he came to speak to us and explain to us how difficult it was setting up tables and chairs and storage. Is there any way to get that? Or was that really the gist of it? It's really complicated. I'm just.
So there's some in the packet, actually, because in my perusal of it today, there is some questions about storage so in this room, for instance, right now, the imperfect way we're doing this right now, the piano's in here. Ideally, You know, we say there's a capacity of 119 people in, then the piano is out. Yeah, also there's a bunch of table storage back here, back to my left, in the corner, those racks, and the chair storage. In an ideal world, all of those things are stored elsewhere. Because the racks are a tripping hazard, and we don't want them in the room where people are. We make do with this because we don't have a storage room for them. So some of those questions are in there about table storage, TBD. Some of the questions about compact seating are about not needing to store the chairs that are stored along the wall because the compact seating has been installed.
Okay.
But I'll try to put that into a blurb. I mean, it's.
No, I haven't seen this packet either.
Well, and each
So
option,
it's fine. Whatever's in here, I'm sure works.
it does tell you like the amount of like manpower or something. I forget how it's, but not only like the amount of storage, but also like how much effort it will take
Low,
for the
medium, and high.
custodians to set it up, low, medium, or
Okay.
high effort from them.
Good. Okay, good.
Because
Okay, without telescopic seating, everyone's on the same level on the floor, correct?
Correct. Yep.
So if people can take a week and really look at this packet, give feedback, we need more time, I'll let you know, but take a week, we should try to hit for a week. This one. Okay, is there any other, old business?
I just have a quick piece. I don't want to vote tonight because we're still seeking other quotes. I just have a quote for a new ductless split HVAC unit that has died in the IT office. So it's 60. What? HVAC again, $60,000, right?
Another meeting, that's talking about.
Sorry.
But.
This is the
stay
stuff
on for
that keeps
that one,
dying.
too.
Was-
Exactly.
And that's not new.
It's pretty new.
Then why is it dying?
Yep. That is a good question.
Wait, so is this just for the split that goes on the wall, or is this for the split and a new compressor?
Yeah, the whole thing. So we
Okay.
replaced the head, the inside, we replaced it once. And it just doesn't.
So hence we need the new compressor
Correct.
and the head.
Yes. Bigger than your house. But yes, it was replaced in 1250.
Don't
But
like
we have-
needing to use that terminology, Jeff. I don't like that I know that.
Exactly.
I like it. Be prepared for the next packet when we talk about that.
So this is for awareness, you know.
Yeah, because it's a high enough amount. This is under contract, on state contract through our contract with Train. That's the price. And we trust their installation. And this would be a Train product rather than other product. Not to name names, and but I think we want to seek some. It's so far outside of my scope and awareness. I do not know if this is a reasonable price or not. So I don't want to vote for that. But if you see this next month, and of course the question is, we do this now. If there's a building project, it will go. So we're finding ourselves pinned by some of these. The boiler is a very similar question. That's a bigger ticket item than this. But it's that same question with the boiler. Do we try to get the boiler? Do we try to limp along with our boiler? And what happens if we can't limp along with the boiler? The boiler is, well, this doesn't work. So I can't say the boiler is worse than this. The boiler is trickier than this. So
Okay,
that's just a reality. All right.
okay, so any other old business? Any future business?
I don't know if this is a future business item, but I do need to make a statement for the public and to the board. So can I make that now?
Sure.
Okay. My spouse and I intend to move to Massachusetts. We are unsure of the time frame. It could be within months, it could be within seasons. It is highly likely we'll be moving before my term expires in June of 2025. So I'm informing the board and the public I intend to resign my seat at the end of June 2024. So the seat should be considered open for the general election that's coming up. And I don't know, I know there's 2 seats that are going to be open for 5-year terms, I assume that this would be for 1-year term to complete the end of my term.
There's just for clarity, there's a full 5-year term, there's a 2-year term, and then this would be a 1-year term.
Okay.
So that's what would be up a 5
Okay.
or 2.
Sorry, I'm losing track.
Yeah.
I think because you're the replacement of Harmeet. Got it. Okay, so thank you. So this would be a 1-year term for people, or I guess whoever gets the greatest number of votes gets the 5 years. Anyway, 1 year, I believe. And although this is not goodbye yet, I want to thank the board and staff for their patience and counsel up to this point as my spouse and I were making this decision.
Congratulations on your retirement. Good luck with the house hunt.
Thank you. Yeah, we are actively searching for a new place. We have not found it. That's why I said we have no idea when we'll be moving, but it seems fairest for both the board, the library, and the public for the seat to go up for a general election. I will say a couple more things about that.
Sure.
It is my experience from sitting on the school board for a number of years that people oftentimes would run for that board because they had a particular issue, concern, or area of the program they wanted to advocate for. And from both that experience and this experience, I considered a trustee or board of education member should have the broadest possible interest in sustaining the library and all of its programs and representing the communities for all of that. So, and I would also encourage people in the community who have experience with bonds and building projects to run for the seat. I think the board has done an amazing job with the architects getting the project up to this point. I do know, I believe, some of you may disagree, that my experience with bonding the district and projects has been helpful to the board. So that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. It's not goodbye, so we'll do those at a later time. Any public participation?
Can I do it again?
Sure. 3 minutes.
I apologize.
No, don't apologize. Not at all.
Excuse me, I mentioned before, that the message that Jeff has in the library notes, or whatever it's called, which I think is a very good response to some of the issues that were raised in a couple of spotlight letters. Even one of them, spotlight letter, didn't appear until after your letter, but I think it was a very good response, and that is why I urged that that paper copies be made available, such as the circulation desk, I think, to get that message and that information out. There is another aspect of what those couple letters in spotlight raised concerning that I think is probably more appropriate for the board to, and that is the expressions of concern over the cost of the building and the potential tax impact on property owners. I think it is important for the board to address that question as soon as possible before a narrative takes place that this building cost is excessive. And I think one way to do that, it's up to your judgment, but to indicate how this figure was arrived at, why it is an appropriate figure, and that less expensive alternatives will not meet the needs of the. I think that's important to say. Secondly, I came to the meeting tonight hoping to hear more about the meeting policy, on which I've probably annoyed you enough already. I annoyed you. And I'm sorry we didn't hear more about it tonight. Let me read something I wrote. The meeting room policy is going to be a significant change. It will have significant impact on the community and community groups regarding their use of the library. Improved and larger meeting rooms are central to the proposed building redesign. This library board is a servant of the community. Yes, you have authority to make policy. The community should be involved before this major policy is revised. It will have great significance for the proposed building and the use of its community rooms, and will also have great significance for the campaign to pass the bond.
20 seconds.
We don't want to have an issue arising that the rooms are going to be somehow closed from access or only allowed under very restricted access, and that we don't want that to become an issue to oppose the bond. There should be an opportunity for, there should be an opportunity for public comment on the draft policy, including questions from the public and responses and even possible revisions to the draft before the policy is approved. And I urge that that be something that is done as opposed to just bringing the draft up at a future meeting, voting on it, and putting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public participation? Okay, seeing none, now we need to move into executive session. So I need a motion, and a second, the board to discuss matters involving proposed, pending, or current litigation. So
moved.
Okay, Charmaine, motion seconded. Yes,
Second.
Okay, go on. All those in favor signify by saying aye, raising your hand. Seeing no opposition, that motion carries. Take a couple minute break or a couple second break. While we do executive session. Thank you. Thank you. This says to you.
I would add in the line of.
So we did break it.
Yeah, if you do that.
Okay, so the last one that.
It was like- they said like
15:25. I'll add that.
Okay.
Send it out.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm surprised.
Okay.